Hello, hello. Okay. Hi, everyone. We're here with Workshops for Mom this week. We've got two amazing speakers coming for you. We've got Patrice Porter and Margie Haddad, and we are live in the Facebook group, which also means if you're seeing this live, you are welcome to come backstage. I put the Zoom link in there and come ask your questions, hang out with us. We're so excited to kick it off today. And for Workshops for Mom, we meet every Thursday, and we alternate between morning sessions and evening sessions. And so they are for our moms to connect, get some amazing resources with experts. And what I find a lot of is it's stuff I didn't know that I didn't know. And it's just so fascinating hearing all of these wonderful speakers and bringing with you all today. So I will let Patrice go ahead and introduce our first speaker for today.
All right. Well, it's wonderful to be here with Margie Haddad. And she is an international public relations expert, the general manager of Must Have Communications and Consulting, an author, an award-winning TV producer, as well as a coach and a speaker on how to apply public relations strategies to parenting, life, and careers. The Power of PR Parenting is her first book, and it is now available for pre-order on Amazon, and the launch date of it will be April the 4th. And Margie holds a BS in broadcast journalism and an MA in international relationships, both she got from Boston University. She is married and the mother of 3 children. She lives in Israel and the United States. And for more information, you can go to PR4, that's FOR, .life. All right, Margie, great to have you here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that introduction. It's great to see you ladies. It's great to see everybody out there who's watching. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you happen to be in. And as Patrice said, my name is Margie Haddad, and I'm coming to you from Israel this evening. It's around a little after 7 o'clock our time here. So when you're in public relations, one of the things we do in PR is we do an awful lot of writing. We write press releases, we write speeches, we write PowerPoint presentations, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Now, Ren and Patrice, I'm going to ask you to participate today because I love conversations. So I prefer interactive, if that's okay with you. So if you unmic and join me for a couple of minutes, that would be great. So unmic, yes, please unmute. That's great. And let me ask y'all something, because you're both moms, you've been training people for years, and even in your own world, I would like to know, and now I'm going to share my PowerPoint presentation with you. Let's go up here, and here it is, and we're going to go to the slideshow. Here it is. Great. Now, the topic of my presentation is Kiddo Copywriting 101. But I want to get into something with you, and let me ask you this. Why do you think that writing skills are important for whatever you're doing in your world?
Well, it's having that ability to be able to communicate and get your message across and be able to understand and be able to be understood. Having that command of language.
How about you, Ren? You've got 3 kids of varying ages. Why do you think it's important for your children, even at these various stages, to know how to write well?
Well, communication was the very first thing that came to mind. So that one, yeah, that's the one that stands out. And then I would say it's also in that communication, it's making sure that you experience things, you know, correctly and, putting that, and I actually being a mom of adopted kids and they have a lot of challenge, I know that if I miscommunicate, especially like with the oldest one, it will set off, fireworks. So it's really big as far as being able to be very clear and, good things with that.
So I agree with both of you. Communication skills are really, really important so that ultimately whatever we're saying is received by the people we're speaking to the way that we intend it to be, right? No matter who your audience is. So in public relations, whenever we're drafting messaging, we always think about who's our audience? What are we trying to achieve? What's the goal? And then we craft our message according to the person or the people or the group or the target market that we are trying to address. Now, throughout life, whether it is a speech, like as early as a confirmation or a bar mitzvah speech, or graduation from high school, or college, or applying for a job, or anything as simple as an email or a text message. All these things are really important to be able to craft in a way that we're understood the way we want to be understood. Now, I think that it's really important, and it's also possible, to start teaching our kids writing skills as early as first grade. Why? What happens in first grade? Anybody want to take a guess? Let's go for the biological part first. What happens at around, say, 6 years old? Want to take a guess?
They've absorbed a whole lot of vocabulary. They're building their vocabulary and they're doing more.
Patrice, think biologically, not academically, think biologically. What happens to our bodies? I'll even give you a hint. Think dental.
More. Oh. You lose your baby teeth. I don't know if that affects your.
Yes. Ding, 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 ding. You lose your baby teeth. Well done. Bravo. According to the Mayo Clinic website, at 6, we start to lose our teeth. Now, if you take losing your teeth, and what was that second part that you started to talk about academically?
Their hand control, fine motor controls and
right. In first grade, we start to learn sentence construction, right? Like in kindergarten, we learn our ABCs. And first grade, we start to put subject, verb, direct object together. So if we have A and B together, maybe we put them together to get C. A plus B equals C. Does that make sense? All right. So math isn't my thing. Anyway, so if we have if our baby teeth are coming out and we're starting sentence construction, well, we have a friend in the neighborhood who might be able to help us out to create an exercise. And her name is the Tooth Fairy. Now, what on earth does the Tooth Fairy have to do with writing assignments? Well, you want to take a guess?
Because you have to write the note that the Tooth Fairy does.
You need to write a request letter to the Tooth Fairy. That's right. And it doesn't have to be really sophisticated. It can be really, really simple, and whatever works for you and your child. So something like this that we have on the screen. Dear Tooth Fairy, I know that you work really hard, but I lost my tooth and I would really love to receive money, a gift, chocolate, have it an airplane, have it a car, whatever you want to put in, however you want to fill in the blank over there. Think big, kids, think big. Anyway, so you make this letter, But here's the thing. Oh, chocolate. The reason why I brought up chocolate before is because out of all the candies, this is the one that washes off your teeth, as opposed to taffy or one of those other sticky things. So I always like chocolate, and because the kids like chocolate, I always kept chocolate around. So when they asked for the sports car, I said, well, we'll talk about it when you get your driver's license years and years and years from now. I put that one off. Okay, back to the letter. When you are with your child, help them, guide them, sit with them, help them to construct their sentences, but they're doing the writing, not you. Help them with their spelling, help them with content. Whatever they ask, you're there to make suggestions, but ultimately they run the show. They control the dialogue. They're the owners of their own letter to the Tooth Fairy. And this helps them to advocate for themselves, along with writing skills, sentence construction, spelling, and being able to share the message that they want with the Tooth Fairy in a way that the Tooth Fairy will receive it the way they intend. Now, after this letter is written, then it's editing time. In public relations and throughout life, we will all learn that there is no such thing as the perfect first draft. Not one CEO that I've worked with over the years has produced a perfect first draft. Not one public relations marketing salesperson whose first drafts that I have seen, everyone can be edited, including me. In fact, if somebody tells me that they don't find anything on my first draft, I want to say, I want another pair of eyes. There's always something. There's also no such thing as the perfect first run, because we all have a first time of doing something, and we're not expected to be perfect. And just like that's a very important message to share with our children, that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay not to have a perfect first run. It's also okay to get feedback. And rather than see it as criticism, we want our children to see this as feedback, how to improve it. So we say to our child, that was an absolutely fabulous first draft. I love your letter. That was so creative, really, really well done. Would you mind if I show you a way to make it even more fabulous? And then your child says, well, it was really fabulous. And and now I get an opportunity to make it even more fabulous. Of course, I want to make it more fabulous. It's for the Tooth Fairy, and I want a really good gift. So rather than a red pen, which is fire engine angry, and nobody likes a document that's all marked up in red. It just makes us feel badly. I know when I was a kid and I used to get papers marked up in red, I just felt bad and wanted to cry. So instead, take a pastel color, some version of a blue or a green or a pink, and share your comments with your child in pretty colors. So whether you have 1 or 15 changes, at the end, you have a very pretty colored document, which is not offensive, it's actually welcoming. And then it's time to rewrite the letter to make it pretty and clean for the Tooth Fairy. Round 2. So we get another chance to do the whole thing all over again, handwriting. And when you're writing something, you're also reviewing the sentence construction over again. And you're also reviewing the messaging in your head. So if your child wants to make a change, they can. Remember, they're in control. We're just supporting cast here. And then you've got this wonderful document. You put that in an envelope, you put the tooth in there with it, and you slide that under the pillow. What are the benefits of all of this? Ladies, what do you think are the benefits of all of this? now that you've heard the procedure?
Well, they've got learning about first draft. I think that was the big one that yeah, you get something down, you're doing your best and it's great, but there's always ways you can make it better, and especially if you've got someone there that's willing to help you out. So that I think that's a real big lesson there, that one to you know, and they've started that skill of getting their message down on paper, writing.
Absolutely. Ren, any thoughts?
Yeah, well, the first thing to me was, repetition. That's a big thing. And I really, really like the idea that Patrice just mentioned, is the whole thing like first drafts are not anything to be ashamed of or things like that. And just the fact that you pointed out, like, no CEO has ever written like that perfect thing. And like for me doing it myself, composing emails, I'm always like, 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 and so it just, right in your sentence, it relieves so much pressure. So thank you.
Absolute pleasure. And I can tell you that this was a traditional practice that we had in our house. I have 3 kids. They all wrote to the Tooth Fairy. And sometimes even with all the positivity, they'd be like, and I'd say, look, mommy just spent an entire day editing people for her job. And it wasn't even a first draft. So you're doing great on your first draft. So just keep that in, get a little bit of perspective here. And then they would smile and they were like, really, those older people, they need help too? And I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. Everybody can be edited. So you're joining the ranks of the CEOs of the world. And they love that. So it's an exercise and a lesson in resilience. It's a wonderful, wonderful bonding experience. You already have strong bonds with your children. Here's another way to continue to strengthen them and for them to learn to trust you and know that when they show you something, they're only going to get positivity and help from you. They don't have to worry about negativity and criticism. It's about making something better, not pointing out what you did wrong, but pointing out what you did right, and then graduating from there. It's a win-win situation. And after you learn with the repetition, listen, you can do this exercise until the last baby tooth falls out. That's a lot of repetition. And what's great, at least at our home, long after my kids knew that mom and dad were actually the Tooth Fairy, because I think we got snagged one night when we were pulling out the tooth. They tried to stay up really late at night and catch the Tooth Fairy in the act. Well, even after that, we continued the tradition because it was really fun. And it was just one of those really great exercises that we adopted in the house. Now, because of this repetitious in a positive way exercise, when they went to write other things, whether it was a form or a speech or any kind of application, they were not nervous about it because they'd already been there, seen it, and done it so many times. And of course, we were always there to support them with the content and the spelling. But the bottom line was they controlled the activity. And we had multiple copies of things if we needed to, so that if we need to redo the paper, no problem, nothing to stress out about. We can do it 5 times if you want, all good, nothing happened. So here's a list of all the different things throughout life that we can apply the same Tooth Fairy exercise to. The Tooth Fairy writing lesson. Thank you, Santa, Easter Bunny, Hanukkah Harry, for being there for us. Another opportunity to write another request letter. Celebration. It's a birthday party. Aunt Susie and Uncle Mayor, they just gave me a wonderful gift. Well, you should write them a short thank you note to tell them how much you appreciate it. Text messages. Until today, with my teenagers, when I get a text message that has a really, let's just say crazy autocorrect, I will reply to my child. I'm going to hope that that was a bad autocorrect. Can you please rewrite me that text message again? And they do. And then I exhale that my teenager actually has a command of the English language. And you can do the same too. It's all good. All communication is game. And like we said before, it can be applied to not just things growing up, but for things that we're going to need to do into adulthood and throughout life. Everything down to future love letters. Definitely want to be understood on those love letters. And that's that. So does anybody have any questions? No, you have a question, Patrice.
Not really a question, but just a story. Like I worked with a lot of 3 and 4-year-olds, and you don't really think that writing starts at that point, but I found there was some kids, they would start to mimicking trying to write, like they would have a piece of paper and they'd be pretending they're writing. And so what I did with them was to have them, show them that they can take their thoughts, like we would start creating stories, and I would actually write their words down for them and make it into a little book. And I tell you, that just really gets them enthused about being a writer, and that you can take your thoughts and put them down on paper. And
absolutely, expressing ourselves. The kids can do it at very, very young ages. And these are the kind of things that we talk about in the book you mentioned at the top of this, which is called The Power of PR Parenting: How to Raise Confident, Resilient, and Successful Children Using Public Relations Strategies. We walk through all sorts of kind of fun things, as early as how to deal with separation anxiety when you drop your child off at 6 months old or earlier at the nursery school, to presentation and performance, how to build self-esteem using traditional rites of passage, a lot like the Tooth Fairy, but in other areas. And then the real serious things like crisis management, whether it's health related or something violent that happens on the street, the expected, the unexpected, prejudice, bullying, and pretty much everything in between. The chapters of the book are actually answering the questions of real working moms from a conversation I had with them, asking, what would you like to know? So it's real practical information. And at the end of each chapter, there's a QR code that will lead you to a workbook. And the workbook is free because I wanted to give a present to all of the readers, so that the exercises in each chapter that show you how to go about the same exercise and apply it to your own situation, you have an expanded version of that in the workshop, in the workbook, where you can fill out either handwritten or type it and then print it, whatever you want to do, whatever your thing is. And then that way you have a real action plan, something tangible in your hand, and you know what your next steps are. Now, if you want a little bit of help with that and say, you know what, this is all well and good, but I don't want to do this by myself. I'd like to know a little bit more about these approaches, and I'd like somebody to help me along the way. Then there is the PR Parenting Program, which starts on May 24th. It's on Wednesdays for 2 hours for 5 weeks. And again, I love giving presents. That makes me happy. And I want to help my sisters out. So on March 12th, which is National Working Moms Day, anybody who has signed up for the PR Parenting Program already will be entered into a drawing, and the winner will receive a full scholarship to attend the program. So that is my gift to some mother out there who would like extra help and to be part of a private community and all the other benefits that come along with the program. And from me to you. So ultimately, ladies, the book and the workbook and the program, it's all part of a PR parenting movement that I hope starts now with all of us. And we teach these PR parenting skills to our kids, all these wonderful communication related skills to our children, and they teach them to theirs, and so on and so on. So 100 years from now, they'll still be PR parenting. And hopefully the byproduct of that will be a kinder, more peaceful, respectful, and inclusive world. That's ultimately the goal. And it all starts with things like writing letters to the Tooth Fairy.
That was so awesome.
Love
Thank
it.
you, Ren.
I just
Hi,
added
Willa.
chat so people can go ahead and grab all of your goodies. And congratulations on your best-selling book just in the pre-sale. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yes, it hit #1 in 3 different categories in the first week. And I just found out that it's going to be translated into Spanish and Hebrew as well. So it's all happening. And I really invite everybody to join the PR parenting community. It's really simple. Just go to PR4FOR.life, and you can sign up for the community. And I'm going to show you something else that's kind of cool. Hold on one second. Let's see how I can figure this out. Just a minute. I'm going to stop my share for just a moment, and I'm going to find my other screen. And here's what I wanted to show everybody. Here is another present. I told you I love giving presents. Here's another present. This is something that we review in the book. This is my top 10 PR pro tips for planning the perfect party. One of the things that we do in public relations is we throw a lot of events. And I've used this thought process in every event that I've thrown, from media breakfasts for the Prime Minister of Israel, all the way to planning my children's bar and bat mitzvahs, to spaghetti nights with kids in the house, and everything in between. It's literally the same process. And I think Willa has seen this list before. You've seen the PR pro tips here, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What was your impression? Was it helpful for you?
Well, this is my second time around hearing you in this presentation, and I'm here, so accept the compliment.
Thank you.
Remember? No, seriously, like, we have to get together, because, I mean, I have an absolute mind meld with you in terms of parent empowerment. I mean, I have been working at parent empowerment for 40 years. And I'm continuing to do that. And I mean, this stuff is just, it blows me away. I mean, we need children, the ownership of that writing to the Tooth Fairy. They own that document with your approach. That is their message, not yours, with your pretty little colors and your helping. It's theirs. And it starts with it starts with the kids, right? And then, of course, for the parents to be able to do it with no red. I mean, the red comes from school when everything's, well, my opinions on our school system. It's sad,
Right.
but I just love you to bits, and I'm so excited. I was actually looking for you yesterday because I saw this. Did you do something yesterday? Because I had it in my book and I couldn't find you.
Oh, yes, I had. I was telling Ren earlier, I had my very first independent Facebook Live.
Yes.
Where I introduced everybody to the PR parenting movement,
Great.
the vision,
Okay.
present, and future. And you can actually catch that on Facebook.
Okay.
If you go to the invitation, which is on my feed, and click it, you'll be able to navigate to the presentation, and it walks you through from start to finish, the backstory, how we even got here in the first place, which actually started 2 years ago, and what the vision is. And ultimately, it boils down to a family motto, which is, if you can help, you should help.
Mm-hmm.
So my kids said, Mom, you have to help. I said, kids, okay, so I'm doing my best to pay it forward to the next generation. And it's really all about building self-esteem and self-confidence and self-love. And
Absolutely.
even this tooth fairy exercise, as it's described here, because you own it, you
Yes.
gain more confidence.
Mhm.
And as you improve, your confidence starts to soar. And so
Mhm.
does your self-esteem. And when
Mhm.
somebody says to you, oh, this isn't the right way to do it, in the back of your mind, because you've already heard it's feedback, not criticism, then you can receive those comments from outside, no matter how they're positioned. You
Yes.
can just filter the negativity and hear only the message, because you've been through this so many times, it just doesn't
Yeah.
matter to you anymore.
Yeah.
And
And the
you have to
ownership
protect
and the ownership also builds in the responsibility. It's theirs, so they are responsible for it. And that responsibility is critical in resilience. You know, you figure out what you're responsible for and what somebody else is responsible for, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
have our responsibilities. And even
Yeah.
like in the public relations world, when you're working
Yeah.
on a team, we all have our part of it.
Yep.
And that's also something that we discuss in the book about at work, you have your team, so why not at home? Build your team and start building when they're little, because when they get older, you're going to need them to be there for you in the
Yeah.
good times and also the challenging times. That's something that the book, the very first chapter, opens up with how my children supported me on a day, if I may, a day from absolute hell. It was probably the darkest day of our life. You can read the book to read the story, but that is something that's very, very important to do. And Willa Doreen, I'm just so happy to know you and to have the friendship of all three of you ladies and everybody who's in this community. And if I can be of service to you, and Tracy too, I see Tracy's name there, she's on here by phone, then, and everybody out there who's listening, we're all in this together, moms, literally. We're all in this together. There's nothing that you're going through that somebody else is not going through or hasn't gone through before. Been there, seen it, and done it. Now, granted, I look like I'm in my 30s, but that was years ago. In fact, it was decades ago. And I am inviting you into my world, and as are all of these ladies. So if there's anything we can do to help, please do not hesitate to reach out. And again, please join the PR parenting community. We're a new approach, a new way of looking at things. It's the first time PR and parenting are being put together in the same sentence. So think of it something like, well, I don't know if you like peanut butter and chocolate, but I'm a big fan of the Reese's peanut butter cup. Do you remember the commercial, 2 great tastes in 1 candy bar? That's kind of what PR parenting is. 2 really wonderful professions, because parenting is a profession, merged together into something spectacular.
Yeah.
And that is the end of my presentation. I could go on and on and on, but I know that we have Patrice waiting here, and she is absolutely fantastic. And I know you're going to love her presentation. Let me tell you a little bit about Patrice. Patrice Porter, also known as the Gardening Grandma. How cool is that? Works with children through her Got Dirt Gardening for Kids program and Fabulous Family Fortunes program. She's a highly regarded gardening consultant who loves opening the world of gardening to folks everywhere now that technology makes it possible. She retired after 15 years as a certified educational associate, working with young children in the play and exploration program in her community. Patrice is the author of the book series, Bringing Out the Potential of Children, and co-author of the #1 best Amazon seller book, No Problem Parenting, Raising Your Kiddos with More Confidence and Less Fear. And I, for one, am already a huge fan, because I have 0 gardening talent and I'm all ears because I want to learn how.
All right. Well,
take it away.
all right. Well, thank you very much for that intro, and it's wonderful to be here. And as I said, I love opening the world of gardening for folks. And especially for those parents or that want to do more to help their families become more self-reliant and ensure that they'll have those fresh fruits and vegetables that are nutritious and picked right from their home garden. And hopefully it'll be a family garden. So I'm going to be encouraging you to start that family garden and to get your kids involved with it too. It, once again, is a very wonderful bonding experience. You can create some wonderful memories. And what I'm covering today, I'm going to just get my slides going here. I'm going to be covering the 3 P's of gardening. Okay. Sorry, and the 3 P's are the planning, preparing, and planting. I just got to get this from the beginning. There we go. Oh my. Okay. Excuse me on the tech side. I've got to share screen and then I'll start the slideshow. I guess it took my whole screen. So I'll share screen. Okay. Slideshow. Tech is not my strong suit here.
You're
There
doing
we go.
fantastic.
There. I'd rather be working in the dirt than with the technology, but here we are. So the 3 P's of gardening. And it's, go back here. Oh my. All right, I'm going to escape and start over again at the beginning. Okay. So as I said, it was the planning, preparing, and planting. And it's this 20% of the, if you've ever heard of Pareto's law about the 80-20 law, and it's this 20% action that's going to give you 80% of the results. And if you can get this part right, you're going to have some marvelous results in your garden. So we start off by envisioning what's going to be your ideal garden. What's that garden you've been dreaming of? I know for myself, I really like my land to be as productive as it can. I like it to be overflowing with abundance. And so here, if you could create a vision that you want to work towards, and think of what a type of garden that's going to be suited to you, your lifestyle, and your area. And what is it that you want to grow in your garden? What kind of things do you like to eat? You know, what are some of your favorite crops? Your second favorite crops? And ask your kids too, like, what is it they like to eat? And maybe, you know, you can give them a section of the garden that they can be responsible for and plant some of the things that they want to grow. And a good thing, if you can go to the farmer's market and find out what actually grows in your area and what type of foods would you be buying from the farmer's market. And think too, okay, it's lovely. I know, like when you get your seed catalogs and there's these fabulous things and it's so easy to get carried away when you start looking through that. So you've got to remember too, what kind of things are that you want to grow, that you're willing to put that effort in to grow. And maybe you want some extra stuff for your, to put away for winter or to put up as preserves, or, something that, just, again, like, start off small. Like, it's so easy to get yourself overwhelmed by all these delicious things you can grow, but start off small because you can always expand. And some examples, it might be like, if you're really busy, it might be a simple container garden, or even just having some herbs on your windowsill so that you can pick fresh herbs and add them to your dishes and have your family start wondering, what did you do to this dish? And believe me, when you start getting that fresh food, it tastes way better than anything you can buy in the store. Or a raised bed for easy access if you're a little older, or just the easy care. Or maybe you're live in the city and you want an edible landscape, that you can have some beautiful designs with all sorts of plants that are edible. Or you might want to put in that a bee and butterfly garden. And your forest food garden, for me, I live right in the forest, so it's quite easy for me to emulate the forest with its different layers. And then again, your backyard garden that's overflowing with the bounty of fresh produce. I love overflowing gardens, lots of abundance. And for ensuring that you have some success in your garden, you want to know about your climate and your area, what you can grow and when to grow it. And there's a great site, worldweatheronline.com. If you go there and find the city and city or town near you, and you're going to look at the average yearly temperatures, and there'll be the highs and the lows for each month. Check that out. And then you can determine what crops to plant when you can grow them, what'll grow in your area. And there's the cool season crops, which grow at 33 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's 0 to 13 degrees Fahrenheit. And some examples like your brassicas, your broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, celery, garlic, kale, peas, radishes, spinach, Swiss chard. And then there's your warm season crops, which is 85 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, or 20 to 35 degrees. And that'll be things like your squashes and tomatoes and pumpkins, cucumbers, eggplants, basil. And then we've got what is called like the sweet spot, and that those temperatures of 13 to 29 degrees centigrade, or 55 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit, it's what we call the sweet spot, where all vegetables grow. And start to put your plans together. And the plans are going to be like stepping stones to get you on moving forward towards that ideal garden. And as Stanley Judd says, a good plan, it's just like a roadmap. It's going to show the final destination and usually the best way to get there. So make those steps, take them from where you are and where you want to be, and make them really clear. And start off with like just small steps or a project that's moving you forward to that ideal garden. And here I'm going to put 3 different plans here. You've got your plan for greater yields, your health and fertility plan, and the plan for weeds, pest, and disease management. And you'll find that these all kind of tie in together. And so when you're planning for higher yields, which I think most of us love to have higher yields for all our effort we're putting in. And it's really important to get to know your plants so that you know what they need and when they need it, and you can give it to your plants to keep them producing. And get to know the plant life cycle and what you can expect at each stage. So like there's going to be some plants like tomatoes, you want to get them like to that fruiting stage so that they're starting to produce the tomatoes. You don't care about a big luscious tomato plant. You want those tomatoes. So you know that you want to push them to get to that flowering and fruiting stage. And then like things like your basil and your lettuces and stuff like that, it's the leafy vegetative stage that you want to keep them in that. You don't want them to start flowering. You want to keep them at that vegetative stage. So it really helps if you get to know the plant life cycle. And there's actually crops that are bred to have higher yields. So you can choose that, or ones that are bred to be more pest and disease resilient. So look to see how their pest and disease susceptibility. And again, you're looking for crops that are suited to your area. Like for me, there's no sense of me trying to grow watermelons. They just don't grow here. We've got a very short growing season, and we just don't have the temperatures, and they use a lot of room, and they're just not suited to our area. And like for me, again, like I've got a very short growing season. So I really like to start as many seedlings as I can, or bedding plants. So that'll give me that kick start to this season and get things growing and producing sooner. And if you have perennials in your garden, they're wonderful. And you know, you can divide your perennials, and so that you'll have the double amount. And often a lot of plants, it's that dividing them that actually helps them to keep producing. And the biggest thing for you can do for your garden is to be vigilant. Like looking and seeing that there's no sign of disease or insect damage, that their plants are well watered, and knowing that what to harvest, how to get your plants to maturity, and when to harvest them. Because if you harvest them when they're underripe, they don't taste very good. And if they're overripe, the flavor starts to go too, and plus there isn't that shelf life. So keep an eye on your garden, see what's coming ready to pick and harvest, and watch for the watering, disease, if there's any bugs moving in, because if you can catch them early, you can keep the numbers down. And if you have a rain gauge, then that'll help you keep track of how much water you've had. And usually there's a rule of thumb about an inch of water per year, but you're checking too to see if the soil is drying out, and to see if there's any weak plants and pull those out. They're not going to produce for you. They're just taking up space I know it's very hard to do. So many times it's like, oh no, I couldn't. I put so much work in here, but really do yourself a favor, pull out those unhealthy ones. They're not going to produce. And do rotate your crop so you're not depleting the soil in any one area. And you can do things like put in cover crops at the end of the year to help build up the nutrients of the soil, or what's called chop and drop. And that's where you just let things grow and you're chopping any organic material. Like you don't want to, because you're adding it back to the soil, you don't want to be chopping down things that have gone to seed, weeds that have gone to seed. You want to chop them before they go to seed, and that so you're just getting that organic material. And if you can add more organic material, that's going to increase in nutrients, and also it has great water holding capacities. And like, keep on harvesting with your vegetable crops. If you keep picking off the leaves for lettuce and spinach and that they'll keep producing. And you know, the main thing here is like keeping your plants so that they're stress-free and happy. And so you want to eliminate any extremes in weather extremes or temperature fluctuation extremes. Like if it's really hot in your area, you might put shade cloth over, or in my area where it's cool a lot, we use row cover to prevent that extreme in temperatures. Or nutrients extremes, like, you know, don't let the soil become so depleted because that'll stress out your plant. Look for any soil contamination. And again, watching for any insects, disease, or weeds in your garden that are competing with your plants. And here the big thing is create healthy soil, because it's that healthy soil that's going to make healthy plants. It's going to make a healthier you. And like that soil, it provides all the nutrients and support and structure for your plants. And that's where the water is retained, and that it also, it supplies oxygen to the roots. And it's habitat for the microorganisms. Like when you look at a soil, like it's a living, it's full of microorganisms, all sorts of living organisms. And it's those microorganisms that are actually breaking down and making the nutrients available to your plants. And do some soil amendment. The biggest one I recommend is like compost. If you can put on a couple of inches of compost at the beginning of each year, that's going to feed your garden. And like myself, I have a large growing area, and I don't always have enough compost for it, but I use the biochar, which is an excellent for adding the nutrients and having it be available to your plants. And check your pH. If it's low, then like the ideal is 6.8. And if it's lower than that, you can add some lime. If it's higher, then you can add some sulfur. And remember, you're feeding the soil, and that is what is feeding your plants. And our next, I wanted to mention, oh, no, I'll leave that there. So our next plan is your weed, disease, and pest management plan. And here it is. It's a matter of like, show those pests who's the boss, and let them know they are not welcome in your garden. So you're going to be, creating the habitat and that you want in your garden, and not what's going to be bringing in the bugs. It's what you want. And your health plan, this is going to be your first line of defense, because it's those stressed and damaged and unhealthy plants that the insects and disease are attracted to and infest. And if you can keep that insect habitat down, and by cleaning up any debris and weeds, and using like clean mulches for the insects are going to be breeding in there. And if you can keep that population down as low as possible, and as I said, like, be vigilant, like if you see the bugs starting to come in, take care of it sooner than later, and it's much less of a problem. And if you can create a balanced ecosystem with the beneficial insects. Like I love nature, how there's always sort of that balance. Like one year we had a tremendous aphid infestation, and like, I know aphids, you can easily control them, like a hard spray of water and you knock them off. But also that same year, there was a real high number of the paper wasp, or the predatory wasps. So they were doing the job of cleaning the aphids off my plants. So I really love growing outside because of how nature works that way. But I do like the controlled environments inside. But there you've really got to watch for your insect population when they're inside. And do your harvest before the bugs do. Don't leave it for the bugs. Get in there and harvest it. And keeping your foliage dry. This is where, like, insects and fungal damage, they're attracted to, they'll grow on the wet foliage. And you can use companion planting, polyculture, biodiversity. That's going to strengthen your garden's immunity. And then there's going to come a time you just got to accept it, that the pests and your plants are trying to tell you something. That maybe it's, you've got to change how you're growing it, what you're growing. Maybe it's something about your location. I know, like, weeds, they can tell you a lot about what type of soil you have. And if you're getting a lot of pests, maybe you're not taking very good care of your plants. And if you are having problems, I always suggest, like, to step back and take a look at it from all different angles, all different perspectives, looking at it at many different ways as you can, and clearly define your problem. And that, if you can clearly define it, then that can help to leading to a solution. But, you know, stepping back a little bit, and you're always working towards creating that ideal garden that you want, and the habitat, and working one step at a time. So now we've got our plans in place, and I hope when you make your plans, you put in as many details as you can, and you make them real clear, and these have the actual steps for where you start. And if you start off like that, starting step is a smaller project, but it's something that's moving you towards your ideal garden. And then start to make a daily and weekly actions you can take in your garden that always looking to move towards that ideal garden. And then make daily and weekly habits and prioritize, list the major steps that get you to that ideal garden. And if you can focus on that and let go of perfection, always knowing that you're taking action, moving forward one step at a time, that you will reach that ideal garden, and let that perfectionism go to the wayside. And if you're planning with your watering, it's a matter of making the commitment right now that you will do regular watering and add it into those habits and daily actions. And then when you can set up your irrigation system whenever you're able. And you might find like you really just enjoy being out there watering your garden. It gives you a chance to look at everything, and you might not want to bother with an irrigation system. You're happy to do that. And then if you're planning ahead, know that you're not going to get 100% germination with those seeds. So if you can have some extra seedlings on hand, or make a plan that you can go buy some extra seedlings to fill in any holes you had, or if it's a fast growing crop, you can fill in, do some reseeding, but plan ahead a little bit there. And as and our pruning and trellising strategies, if you can, you're pruning for healthy plants. So you're taking off any dead or diseased leaves. You prune them for the growth you want. Like my tomato plants, I once they start flowering, I cut off all the leaves except for 4 or 5 of the big leaves. And because I want all that energy to go into the tomatoes, not the leaves. And any leaves, it's your leaves that are going to be transpiring, and they'll lose about 90% of the moisture is transpired through your leaves. So if there's any shaded leaves, cut those off, and harvest regularly your leafy plants, and that'll keep them producing, and also it stops more of the transpiration so that you can conserve your watering. And set up your trellises and stakes, set them up early. Have them in place so before you're doing your planting, so that when the plants are growing up, you can train them up the trellis or tie them to the stakes. And then it keeps a cleaner plant. They're not sprawling all over the ground, and you'll find you'll get a better harvest that way and have healthier plants. And here's the big one for, like, a lot of people, they think of gardening as a chore. And I really like to get away from that. And so have that gardening fit into your lifestyle. you get clarity on the steps so that you know where you can focus your energy on, and always moving forward one step at a time. And if you know what your next step is, that can help prevent you wasting time on doing the wrong things. And if you can work effectively and saving your time, then that can leave time for you to enjoy your garden. And here's coming in, Margie, that writing, keep a garden journal. And so that you know, it's hard to remember from year to year what you did in your garden, and this way you can write down things that are working for you. And actually, if you start to create a replicable system, like something that you can do, the steps you can take that you can repeat, and this will make it easier the next time around. And if you've got it well documented and written down in your journal, then you'll know what's worked for you, what hasn't worked. And if you're making changes, write it down in your journal. And it's getting that clarity. And you'll find that if you've written down those steps you're taking and you're really clear on that, it's those steps that's going to give you that replicable system that you can do from year to year, and it really saves a lot of time in the long run. And then, like, enjoy your garden. Enjoy that, you know, being out in the wonders of nature and all the bounty of the land, and enjoy the fruits of your labor. And you know, you've done this planning, preparing, and planting, and that's 80% of the work. And really, that's the hardest part. If you do that right and you've got everything set up, then you're good to go for the gardening season, and you can be able to enjoy those fruits of your labor. And I'll tell you something that's really motivating is when you get to taste those fresh fruits and vegetables picked fresh from your garden, and have your kids in there joining in on the growing process and enjoying that fresh fruits and vegetables, and having those early successes. So hopefully you will become a lifelong gardener. And celebrate your successes, and to give your kids that life skill of being able to garden and growing their own food. I've put together the Gardening with Kids playbook, which you can pick up if you visit thegardeninggrandma.com. You can pick up that Gardening with Kids playbook. It's more the step-by-step, full of some fun projects there, and even some recipes for using that garden harvest. And keep on growing, and let us celebrate. So if there's any questions, I'm going to jump out of here.
I actually have a comment and an invite, but I'll do my question first. Where do you live?
I live in the boreal forest in Saskatchewan, Canada, right by the Prince Albert National Park.
I'm a Manitoban born
Woohoo!
and bred, but I have now moved out to beautiful British Columbia, and I have a much
Ah,
longer growing season deer. Now I also
yes.
have a composter. Now here's your invite. Come on out and visit. I have a composter that I have been nurturing for 30 years, maybe 29 years. I've had people come onto my property and they want to buy me. One woman offered me $3,000 for it. All I've been doing is just putting in my veggies and stirring it up, and it has to be dynamite stuff. But I have
Gardener's gold.
a gardener's gourd. I know, but I haven't used it. I have acreage and I have gorgeous, gorgeous soil. We're talking horses, cows, well, and their droppings thereof, right? Sheep, goats, chickens, So anytime are you coming to BC soon? Come and visit. I'll send you home with some compost.
My sister lives in BC and
There you go.
they don't have a real big garden, but I should tell her, go
Yeah.
if you need any for your
Oh,
yard.
for sure. Oh, I'd love it to give it to someone. I'm not going to sell it, obviously, but to give it to someone who can use it. Now, I really enjoyed your presentation.
Is it
The planning.
suggestion?
What?
Is there community gardens in your area? Have
Well,
them.
you see, I've tried in 33 years. I've tried several times, but I have blight. Does your sister talk about blight where she is in BC? My tomatoes get
Yeah.
blight and
There's a
Yeah.
solution for that.
oh. Okay, well, I will go on to what information did you give us to get in touch with you? Because I missed it. Have you got it in the chat?
At thegardeninggrandma.com.
Okay,
but
I will
I-
be there.
A lot of posting there, but with growing your tomatoes, I know it on the coast where it's really wet. If
That's
you
it.
can grow them in like under plastic or a covering
Yeah.
to keep that moisture off and that'll help keep down the blight.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
My neighbors on all sides, like we're on acreage here, and my neighbors on all sides have greenhouses for that reason.
Yeah.
They keep their tomatoes in their greenhouse.
Yeah, I've got a separate, even up here, like it's not it's a covered garden because it's not a greenhouse. I don't have like the heat in there, but it'll make a 5 degrees difference
Oh yeah.
from the outside temperatures and the inside temperatures. So it gives me that jump again and being able to grow a little longer into the season. And also, yes, you do have to water by hand. You're not getting the rains from Mother Nature, but it does prevent that blight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I really enjoyed your presentation. It's got excellent tips in it. And so many people now are trying to at least grow their own spices, on their deck and stuff. So, your stuff is invaluable when you talk about planning and what do you really, your favorite foods and stuff, it's great.
yeah, I know, like one year I had gone to this herb conference and I was all inspired. I was going to grow all these different herbs and I got them all started and everything and had them out in the garden. I even got a cookbook, cooking with healing herbs, and it gave recipes for how to use all your herbs. So my idea was that I'm going to have all these different herbs growing, and then each day I'll pick different herbs and try all these new recipes. But because I was growing so much, like with all my other stuff and everything too, by the end of the day, I was just tired. I would just pick what was ready, and I just I was too tired to try out all these new dishes and everything else. So that big thing of, start smaller and you can always expand. It's
I love my herbs. I've got my, like, I have them in the living room now. Like, I've got my oregano and my sage. I keep them all winter. But then I get fresh ones. I put fresh ones into them in the spring. I do keep up with my herbs, like on my patio.
well, if they're on the coast, like those will come back. If they're planted, they're perennial. They'll come back year to year.
There you go. Okay. I got to get on your site, dear. I got to keep in touch.
Well, that knowledge is in my head. I haven't been doing. I was starting a blog. I'd done a lot of blogging before, and I actually ended up like selling that that website and my Facebook page and everything, and because I went on to a different thing, and then after you might find this interesting, Margie. I was doing a writing course with Dr. Jeffrey Lant, and it was a wonderful opportunity. So I sold that website and everything, and then after I'd finished doing this writing course, and then I started to get back into my gardening, and I had to kind of start all over again, and I really haven't been doing the blogging again. The knowledge is in my head, but I welcome anybody to, go to thegardeninggrandma.com, and
Okay.
on the book a call, set up a time there on my calendar, pick a time, and I love to talk gardening, where you're at gardening, and we'll get you on the way to gardening abundance.
And when are you going to put all your wisdom into a book?
Well, I did with the kids, bringing out the potential of children gardeners. But I've been doing like a lot of podcasting and like gardening consulting, like in town here, like they plan their events for when I'm available.
Beautiful.
So that because of the knowledge I have, and I like to do it verbally and writing. I did it when I did that series of books. It's a lot of work.
It is. It's easy
Well, I
enough
have
for
a
me
lot
to
of respect for you, Patrice. My mother-in-law was an agriculture teacher.
Oh,
She's a senior citizen now, but back in the day, she was like you, and she loved the ground, and she just had a wonderful relationship with it. And what was fabulous was that she passed the skill set on to my husband.
uh-huh.
And he has a very, very green thumb. He is the complete opposite of moi. I could kill a cactus. But when I first met my husband, you're going to love this story. We were out in Mitzvah Ramon, which is it's a machtesh, which is there's a crater when there is something from outer space that hits Earth, and then you get a crater, right? In a machtesh, it's an ancient sea that evaporates. So at the bottom of a machtesh, so you have the same crater look and feel, but at the bottom you have all sorts of ancient sea life. And when we first met, literally the first day, we were on a trip to Mitzvah Ramon, which is the southern part of Israel. And he was showing me and telling me the difference in plant life, which was absolutely fascinating to me, because I didn't know the difference from one to the other. And he was able to show me why this little green leaf was different from the other little green leaf. So you and my husband would have hours and hours of things to talk about, because he just loves it and he has a fine eye for gardening and all things nature because of his mother's education for him. So I really
Wow.
appreciated your presentation, especially, I'll tell you what really made an impression on me was when you're talking about cutting off the little leaves
Yes.
and leaving the big ones there so you can put the water and the energy into the ones that really need it so it can produce a nice fruit. That left a big impression. So from now on, because we grow things, and by the way, we have grown a watermelon in our backyard.
Nice.
The mango
But you
tree,
have much warmer climate, I believe.
we do, but the mango tree didn't stand a chance. The cherry, we have a cherry tree in the backyard. We have a lemon tree in the front yard, as well as a plum tree over here. And what else? They did a watermelon. They've done tomatoes. There's passiflora. There's all sorts of fruit trees. And this is outside of, we're outside of Jerusalem. So I loved your
Wow.
presentation because I just felt like my husband would love all this stuff. And I took a picture, you'll pardon me, but there was something with the insects that I wanted to remember. So I took a picture so I wouldn't forget, so I could review it and sound really smart when my husband comes home tonight.
Actually, I will put my slides in a PDF, and under the replay, I'll link. So if anybody wants the slides, because I know there's a lot of information right on the slides there. So I'll put that when the replay is posted, I'll put a link where you can get the,
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely fantastic. I loved it. And it was like a little bit of memory lane listening to you because of my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I absolutely agree with you, Margie. The other part of it too is, as that stuck out with you, you know how many people don't know about pruning? Like with my house plants, I mean, as soon as, like, on a daily basis, I go and I snap off a leaf that doesn't look healthy, and I very gently say, I love you, but survival of the fittest, dear. I love you, but survival of the fittest, dear, you know, because it's so important. And I've had friends that, well, how do you keep that alive? You know, I prune, like, and I think the talking helps too, the carbon dioxide, but you know, really it's critical. And so many people don't know that, whether it's a spice or what, or whether it's a tomato in the garden, especially the tomato, you know, tomatoes, you can way better. And this is what I mean by this is invaluable information, Patrice. I
What you
really,
did,
Yeah.
what you described to me was how to love your garden,
well,
all,
yeah.
all the things that go into it. And it takes it, it's like raising kids. Raising a garden is a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
That's what, you know, with the kids, and I love having the kids out there and connecting with nature.
Yeah.
And like nowadays too, like a lot of parents are afraid to like let their kids explore nature and but it's a secure place, and there's lots going on in the garden. There's lots of opportunity to explore and just start instilling that love of nature. I mean, it'll serve you very well, and especially with the kids nowadays that you know, they get bombarded with environmental crisis and everything, and I find if you can instill that love of nature, that they can let that love direct their feeling, direct their actions, instead of, you know, feeling overwhelmed, and they'll end up doing more than just holding up, you know, placards or whatever, that they see that someone's polluting their waterways. Well, let's get together and clean it up, you know, kind of thing. So the garden is a great starting point for connecting with nature. And when
And
I
connect
teach
your
my,
kids. It's a really
Yeah.
great parent-child bonding
Mhm.
and a respect for the earth.
Mhm.
And of course, I loved your have to write everything down and the planning of it. There we go, subject, verb, direct, object again, and we can edit a little bit too if we want. But it's wonderful to build self-esteem because whether things work out or not, it's a really good exercise and process. And if
Yeah.
things do work out, I remember when they planted the watermelon and they actually had a watermelon, my kids were psyched. I mean,
Yeah.
they had scored major victory there. It was wonderful. So this is a really brilliant exercise, and thank you so much for such a wonderfully informative presentation.
And one last thought, girls, to tie you two together and to tie this whole program together is we become more resilient, and so do our kids in the garden because of the microbiome. We have research now in terms of,
Oh, yeah.
the microbiome in our gut. And gardeners, Patrice, you're probably going to live to be 105 or 110. It's so healthy in terms of your gut microbiome to be digging around in that soil, you know. And when I tell my parents that, you know, because you're right, Patrice, parents are afraid to get dirty nowadays.
Yeah.
Or never mind the
And
safety.
there's even a scientific study that says that working with your hands in the dirt, it releases the
Endorphins.
serotonin.
Yeah,
serotonin.
serotonin. Yep.
Yeah, the happy
Yep.
hormone. So that's
And
why so
safe.
many people consider their garden their happy place.
Yep. And safe. Kids need safety, right?
Yeah.
We all need safety, and you know, the garden is definitely a safe place. Anyway, I've got to go. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I'll be in touch on your websites, both of you.
Look forward to
And-
hearing from you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks for coming, Willa
Bye, Ren.
and Tracy.
Oh, what a wonderful presentation from both of you ladies. I learned so much and I'm just so honored to be around you all. And that's what Workshops for Mom is, just amazing because, like I was saying at the beginning, you don't know what you don't know. I'm like so inspired from that. So we dropped your links around in the chat for those who are on the Zoom. Well, also you can go ahead and on the replay in the group, you can go ahead and put your links on there. So then, you know, people as they watch the replays will be able to have that as well. Perfect. So I'm going to stop the live stream. And then if you all are game, we can do our recap and we'll film that right afterwards for just like.
Okay, so bye for now, moms. See you on the replay. Thanks for joining live, whoever did.
Bye-bye.
Oh, was that Tracy?
Yes. Well,